Okay, everyone. One last kind of parting thought about the actual assignment that we need to do. Okay, so we need to actually put together a storyboard of the narrative of the space. So what I've done is, I finished up all my handrails and got them, configured the way that I want them to be, and now I can pretty much tell the story, so to speak. So these are the named views that I created, and I'm just going to cycle through them. So I'll pull this off screen so that it appears a little better for you. Actually, I need to keep that on screen. For me, it really has to do with the look and feel of the space at different points through experiencing it. So starting off with the approach, it's pretty much like as you're approaching the building, what story does it tell you, right? So the fact that my building is kind of open and you can see the stairs, it basically is pulling you through that space, right? You're outside of the building and you want to experience what you see inside of it, right? That's kind of the idea anyway. But then it whips around to the other side, and this is engage. Oh, you know what? I should probably bake this stuff first. Hang on. Let's do that. Just so that this doesn't confuse you here. This is a cool way for you guys to actually bake this information in a simple way, right? So you have rails that are B-reps, and then you have panels that are also B-reps. But you want rails and panels probably to be on two different layers so that you can bake them out separately and then put them onto a layer for material application. So here's what you do. You get this little B-rep geometry under the params panel. So you pull that and you go up to your 2 panel, right? So you take B-rep rails and you plug that in. Then you take the next B-rep rails and you hold shift and you plug that in. And then this one, hold shift, plug it in, and just keep going down the list till you get all 5. So those are all rails. And if you want, you can right click that and rename it rails. Okay, I'll put that there. Do another one, and I'm going to plug that in, and then shift and plug this one in. That one. That one, and that one. All right, make sure that you hold shift when you do that. So this one is going to be the panels. So I could actually turn all of this off here, and I'll jump back to the approach view so you can actually see it a little bit better. But what you have to do now is just make your layers. So I'm going to make a new layer here, and I'm going to call this one rails. I'm going to make that white or light gray even. And then I'll make another layer for panels. And this one I'll make, I guess, a darker gray. Slightly darker. That's fine. So I take rails. I bake that, I put it on rails, simple enough. It'll take a minute or two, and there they go. Cool, right? Yeah, I saw Yvonne's eyes pop. Yeah. She's excited about it. So then you go to bake, and then you go to panels, you hit OK, and those will bake too. Now they're going to look pretty static and not see-through, but you can make them glass or a mesh or something like that in Maxwell when we get there. But anyway, so we've got back to the narrative, right? So we have approach, which is this, it sparks the curiosity, it's very intense, you see all the interior inner workings of the building, but then you go around to the engage side and it's rather unassuming, right? So that's kind of the narrative I'm trying to tell, is the juxtaposition of where the entry is versus, where the actual, interest is generated, right? So it has to do with that tension. And then you can, start to, and I called this one encroach. I have all these weird names or whatever, but where you actually engage the space and you encroach upon basically the story that's about to be told, right? So then you can start to experience the architecture, the cascading, levels that you're going to be experiencing, and then the cascading architecture that's happening around it. And you can react to the variations in spaces. Similarly, you can, I don't know why I call this one envelope. I'm out of poeticism right now on this one, but what I realized through doing this is that the further you get up in my building in elevation, the less interesting it gets. But anyway, let's continue. So this is, I called it envelop, and then cover. So you get up to the top level, and you have this giant cascading envelope that just covers the whole space that I thought was rather interesting. And then I just took a final one from the outside, and it's just called frame. But it's a way for you to experience the building, you know, sort of as a faraway object rather than part of the narrative. Okay, so that's the point of view that I'm kind of referring to when I say that we're developing a narrative, right? It doesn't have to be compelling, or it doesn't have to be like mega compelling. It doesn't have to be the most brilliant idea of telling the story of a space. Just pick views that have some purpose, right? And hopefully those purposes relate throughout, you know, the telling of that story. Okay? Is that helpful? Does it make sense? It's all right if you guys aren't the poetic type, but just have a purpose for picking the view you picked. That's basically it. Okay? And then just one final thought is that obviously something that I'm trying to focus on here is, again, that rule of thirds. Like, where am I positioning certain things in the image? So this one clearly is horizontal center line, but right side rule of thirds. The approach is the same thing. You see all the action happening along that third line right here in the center, even though the building is full bleed and it goes off to the side. Engage is the same way. The actual path that you take is along the third line, but the interest of the building, the mass of the shell, is on the left third line, right? So I'm really trying to utilize that here. Here you see that all of the vertical circulation is along that left third line, right? So now I'm pulling you over to the left side, and I'm changing, you know, which position on the page. Now that it's a series, right? We're getting a little bit more complex now, right? This is a series, not just one image. So you need to move the viewer's eyes around from page to page and get them, you know, looking at different parts of the image. So that's kind of what I'm referring to with thinking it through. You know, it doesn't have to be the, you know, the next, you know, $1 million work, but you guys think you can do that? Okay. So I'm going to do a quick draft render on one or two of these toward the end of class here, and if there's anything else that you need to know, let me know, and if you need help with anything, grab me.